Hi y'all, welcome back to the Beats Motel. Once you check in, you never check out. I'm your host Austin. If you're new to the channel and you like what you see here, like the video, subscribe. If you're a subscriber, sorry for the long hiatus. I know I've been gone for over a month, if not two months, something like that. Um, Sorry about that. Just been dealing with personal life, work and everything. Um, but I promise it was it was well worth it for the hiatus for y'all, or at least I hope it is, because in the hiatus I also spent some time on YouTube just researching other channels and seeing what they're doing, and just trying to ask questions to them to see what works best for them, because I really do want to give you all the best content that I possibly can. Um, so let me begin by saying I'm not a booktuber. I do not consider myself a booktuber. I don't feel like I fall underneath that category. Granted, most of my videos have been about books or book related. Um, I prefer this channel to be more about entertainment stuff, movies, books, music, stuff like that. Just stuff that can help you and get lost in times of sorrow, stuff like that, without going into detail or trying to make anyone sad. But yeah, so now that that's over, let me begin by saying, as you can tell, if this is your first time, you probably don't know this, but if this is you coming back, it's changed. The scenery has changed. I've rearranged so that way this looked a little bit better in my personal opinion. Sorry for the TV in the background and the glare from that. I needed a little bit more light around this area, so it didn't look super dark, and fortunately that was the only thing I really had. So I'll try my best to block it. But another reason is because I can display the books that I have finished reading and would like to show y'all when I do a review. Let me also start by saying that, as you can tell, I've changed my Stephen King collection, and how they're sitting. They're not vertically no more, they're horizontal. And that was so I could fit more books on there, especially King books, since I'm hoping by the end of this year to own at least 96% of his books. I believe I still have 8 or 9 books of his that I don't own, uh, in physical copy wise. But yeah, so let's start off this review. So I figured with me coming back from a long hiatus, I needed a book that would at least be worth it for me being on the hiatus. Um, and I believe I found one. Though it's not my favorite Stephen King book, but it's up there. And that is, of course, Salem's Lot. I have the original copy here, but I also have the illustrated edition. And I've done another video unboxing what the difference is between the two, and I'll go over those um, very briefly here at the end, just so I can get the review out of the way. So if you saw that, what the difference is, or you know what the difference is, you're not sitting around through that. But yeah, so starting off, um, Salem's Lot. If I had to rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, I give it a 4. Personally, it's a good book. It is. This is Stephen King's only vampire story that he has written to date, or whatever, however the term is. Um, some argue that Doctor Sleep is. It's really not a vampire story. It's the closest he's come to writing another vampire story, but it is not necessarily a vampire story. And I actually had to go into detail for a buddy of mine when we went and saw Doctor Sleep, um, how that it is not a vampire story, but that's another thing for another time. But yeah, Salem's Lot, it's a really good book. King does what he always does, and he fleshes characters out very well on this. There's a couple. So let me begin by saying, in this book, you do not focus on 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people. King focuses on the whole town mostly. which may sound like a lot of people, but in this town, it's really, this town's decent size. It's like a one-horse town pretty much. I mean, you drive through it, you blink and you miss it. Yeah. Uh, so, the general synopsis of this is, our hero Ben Mears, he goes back to Salem's Lot to write a story, and then there's a house in there called the Marston House, um, which has its own history and its own background, which we'll go into when we go into the illustrated edition. But with me trying not to give away any spoilers, obviously there's vampires involved. This takes place in Maine, as most Stephen King books do. I believe King has maybe tops 3 or 4 books, maybe 5 possibly, that don't take place in Maine. Novel wise, but yeah. Anyway, so Mears goes back to this town, and like I said, there's the Marston House, which has a history of its own, which is very integral, important to the story. I will say this about this book: the reason it gets a 4 instead of a 5 for me, 3 reasons really. The big main one is the climax of the story, where we see the hero go against the villain. It wasn't as, how do I put this? When people talk about Salem's Lot, they hype it up a lot, which they absolutely have every reason to, except for the climax. The climax, I feel, falls short of what I was hoping it was gonna be. Personally, I was really hoping for a lot more. I mean, it was good. The ending was good, but the climax was good. It didn't do it for me. This was on cue to be my #1 favorite Stephen King book up until the end, the climax, but it just fell short of The Shining, and that is no reason to not read this book at all by any means. This is a great book. I highly recommend it. If you're going to start with Stephen King, I either recommend this or The Shining. I probably will recommend this one more over The Shining, just because this is one that has King's Tower series, which intertwines most of, if not all, his books. Pretty much starts here, and I'm not going to go anything beyond that, but yeah. So Salem's Lot, highly recommend it. If you have not read it, if you've read it, go reread it. But yeah, sorry, I know I said I had 3 things, but they slipped my mind, so I'm gonna go on from there. So yeah, so the difference between the original and the illustrated edition is King, after he wrote that, had his short story Night Shift, and in there is a short story. It's called Jerusalem's Lot, which I believe is a sorry about that, it's my phone, is the prequel to, he wrote Salem's Lot, but then Jerusalem's Lot is the prequel to this, and it's a little short story. But in this, he also has One for the Road, which is, I guess, a sequel to Salem's Lot. I didn't read it, honestly. When I read it, I read this edition, just because I really didn't want to take the chance of possibly ruining this book. At some point, I will go back in and reread and read One for the Road. It's looks like it's not even 20 pages. It doesn't even looks like it's 18 pages long, which is like probably 30 minutes tops. I mean, if I want to take my time with it. But yeah, if you're a big fan of Salem's Lot, I highly recommend you go pick this up. I picked this up for, I don't remember how much I picked this up for. I know it was under $20. And this is in decent condition. You can find it easily on eBay. So yeah, so if you get the chance, get yourself a copy of Salem's Lot. So now on to what I am currently reading. I had a hard time picking between this book and another one, just because the other book, the movie comes out for it tomorrow, December 10th, and that is It Chapter 2. Personally, I really enjoyed It Chapter 2, but anyways, so I had a hard time choosing between it and The Drawing of the Three, which is King's second book in the Tower series, but I figured I'd go with this one, having read Salem's Lot and that tying into the Tower in some way. I'm not going to explain or spoil how it does, but what I will say, so far I'm about 86 pages into this. So far this is flowing a lot better for me than the Gunslinger did, reading wise. Obviously my favorite part of the Gunslinger was the Battle of Toll, but besides that, just the beginning part aspect where he's walking in the desert and all that, this is flowing a lot better for me, like I said, reading wise. So I feel like I'm hoping I can finish this by the last week of January, so I can upload a video of my top 5 reads of 2019. But I guess we'll see what time tells. So yeah. So if, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you enjoyed what you saw here, like the video, hit subscribe. If you're a subscriber, thank you for coming back, and I will see y'all again next time.